Welcome to Globewise Entertainment, your go-to channel for uncovering the wildest, most shocking and often forgotten stories from Hollywood's past and present. Here we dig deep into the hidden corners of the film industry, exploring everything from cult classics and lost movies to celebrity secrets and dark scandals. In today's video, we're diving into the twisted world of 90s exploitation movies, so shocking and depraved that Hollywood tried to bury them forever. These films pushed every boundary, shocked audiences, and were quickly swept under the rug by studios desperate to hide their existence. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to hit that subscribe button and join the Globewise family, where the most fascinating and unbelievable Hollywood stories come to life. And after watching, tell us in the comments, which of these shocking 90s exploitation films do you find the most disturbing or fascinating? We want to hear your thoughts. Now let's jump right into the depraved and dark world of 90s exploitation cinema. 1. August Underground, 2001. In the shadows of early 2000s underground horror, one film emerged so disturbing, so raw, it felt like a relic of the depraved exploitation era of the 90s. That film was August Underground, a mock-snuff pseudo-documentary so visceral it blurred the line between fiction and real-life horror. Directed by Fred Vogel, this micro-budget shocker followed a sadistic serial killer documenting his own brutal crimes on handheld video. With no score, no traditional plot, and no moral compass, August Underground stripped away cinematic polish to deliver pure, unfiltered depravity. It looked and felt real, too real, and that's what made it dangerous. The film was never meant for wide audiences. It circulated through bootlegs, horror festivals, and underground circles. Rumors swirled that copies were confiscated by customs, and Vogel himself was detained in Canada on suspicion of transporting obscene material. Hollywood wanted nothing to do with it. Mainstream studios turned away, distributors refused to touch it, and even horror fans were split, some calling it groundbreaking, others calling it garbage. But August Underground wasn't created to entertain. It was designed to disturb. In doing so, it became a symbol of how far filmmakers would go to push the envelope and test society's limits. Even today, it's whispered about in hushed tones, buried in the deepest corners of horror history, where Hollywood hopes it stays forgotten. Yet for those who dare to look, August Underground still stands, raw, relentless, and unapologetically horrifying. 2 Men Behind the Sun, 1988. Men Behind the Sun is a harrowing Chinese historical horror film, directed by T.F. Mao, and originally released in 1988. Though it debuted in China in the late 80s, it found infamy and underground circulation in the 1990s U.S. exploitation scene, where its shocking content earned it a reputation as one of the most disturbing war films ever made. The film graphically depicts the atrocities committed by Japan's Unit 731, a covert biological and chemical warfare research division during World War II. Unlike traditional war films, Men Behind the Sun doesn't flinch. It showcases grotesque human experimentation with near-documentary realism, pushing boundaries of both taste and censorship. It was banned or heavily censored in multiple countries, and became a sort of rite of passage for horror and exploitation film enthusiasts. Many viewers initially believed it was a banned documentary due to its shockingly lifelike scenes. Though condemned by mainstream audiences, Men Behind the Sun remains a grim testament to how far exploitation cinema could go in the name of realism, controversy, and historical reckoning. 3. Singapore Sling, 1990. The film so disturbing, Hollywood pretended it didn't exist. In a decade full of boundary-pushing cinema, Singapore Sling, 1990, stood out, not for its brilliance, but for its unrelenting descent into madness. This Greek exploitation film, directed by Nikos Nikolaidis, blurred the lines between noir, horror, and outright depravity, shocking even the most jaded cinephiles of the time. Set almost entirely in a decaying mansion drenched in rain and rot, the story follows a detective searching for a lost lover, only to fall into the clutches of a sadistic mother-daughter duo engaged in incest, torture, and twisted psychosexual games. Shot in stark black and white, the film had the aesthetic of an art house feature, but the soul of something far more sinister. Mainstream Hollywood didn't know what to make of it. Critics were divided, some called it genius, others called it filth. But the disturbing content, including necrophilia and graphic sexual violence, led to widespread bans and virtual erasure from American cinematic conversations. It was too dangerous for cable, too controversial for DVD shelves, and too disturbing to be included in most retrospectives of 90s cinema. Singapore Sling became an underground legend, a film whispered about in cult circles, passed around on bootlegs, and discussed in hushed tones by cinephiles who dared to watch it. Hollywood didn't just ignore it, it tried to pretend it never existed. But like all buried secrets, this one continues to haunt the archives of exploitation history. 4. Funny Games, 1997. In 1997, Austrian filmmaker Michael Hanke unleashed Funny Games, a cold, calculated psychological horror film that shattered conventions and enraged audiences. On the surface, it looked like another violent home invasion thriller. But what viewers got was something much darker. A brutal takedown of media violence itself. The film followed a vacationing family terrorized by two polite, sadistic young men. But unlike typical thrillers, Funny Games offered no escape, no catharsis. Hanke broke the fourth wall, rewound time to erase any hope, and left audiences trapped in helpless silence. Critics were divided, some praised its brilliance, others loathed its cruelty. Many didn't understand it at all. Hollywood didn't quite know what to do with it. Too cerebral for grindhouse, too vicious for art house, it was quietly ignored in the US, only gaining a cult following years later. In 2007, Hanke remade it shot for shot in English, as if to dare America to face its own thirst for cinematic violence. Funny Games wasn't just a film, it was a provocation. And Hollywood, uncomfortable with its reflection in Hanke's mirror, tried to pretend it never happened. 5. Tetsuo 2 Body Hammer, 1992. In the early 90s, while Hollywood churned out high-gloss blockbusters, Japan unleashed a mechanical nightmare that left American distributors scrambling. Tetsuo 2 Body Hammer, a cyberpunk fever dream by Shinya Tsukamoto, was a sequel that nobody in the West was ready for. With industrial soundscapes, body horror, and a surreal plot about a man who transforms into a living weapon, the film melted minds and disgusted censors. Shot in gritty black and white like its cult predecessor, but this time in slick color, Body Hammer pushed boundaries with its violent fusion of man and machine. It was a visceral scream against modern alienation, but US studios didn't know what to make of it. Too weird for mainstream horror, too intense for art house circles, the film was quietly shelved, shown only in underground circuits and midnight screenings. Hollywood hoped it would disappear into vast obscurity, but Tetsuo 2 refused to die. Its biomechanical chaos and unrelenting style would later influence directors like Darren Aronofsky and the Wachowskis. In trying to bury it, the industry accidentally preserved a cult relic of pure, unfiltered cinematic madness. 6. Henry. Portrait of a Serial Killer 2 1996. Once thought buried in the shadows of VHS obscurity, Henry. Portrait of a Serial Killer 2 is a sequel that Hollywood never wanted the world to remember. The original Henry from 1986 was already a controversial cult classic, gritty, grim, and disturbingly real. But the 1996 follow-up took things further, and not in a good way. Directed by Chuck Perrello, the film picks up with Henry, played again by Neil Giuntoli, trying to live under the radar. He gets a job at a Porta-John company, and even forms a twisted connection with the family living on the edge of society. But true to form, Henry's darkness resurfaces, dragging everyone around him into a spiral of violence, arson, and murder. Unlike its predecessor, which was praised for its raw artistry, Henry 2 felt more like a straight-to-video exploitation flick. It had all the hallmarks of 90s sleaze: shaky morality, graphic violence, and a suffocating nihilism that critics called pointless cruelty. The film was quietly dumped with minimal promotion, a far cry from the art house acclaim of the original. Even fans of the first film were divided. Some saw it as a disturbing character continuation, others as a cash-in on infamy. Hollywood quickly distanced itself. No theatrical push, no awards chatter. Just a whispered legacy pass between horror fanatics and exploitation collectors. In the end, Henry II became the kind of sequel you only discover in the dusty back corner of a video store. And maybe that's where it belonged. 7. Cannibal The Musical, 1993. Long before South Park made Trey Parker a household name, he and Matt Stone were just two film students with a camcorder, a warped sense of humor and a taste for taboo. Their first project? A blood-soaked, song-filled satire called Cannibal The Musical, based loosely, and very loosely, on the real-life tale of Alfred Packer, the only man ever convicted of cannibalism in America. This 1993 cult oddity mashed together frontier folklore, Broadway-style show tunes, and absurdly gory slapstick. The result was a bizarre blend of Oklahoma and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, soaked in fake blood and delivered with deadpan smiles. But mainstream Hollywood wasn't laughing. Studios dismissed it as juvenile trash. Video stores hid it behind the counter or refused to stock it altogether. Critics called it tasteless, idiotic, and exploitative, and they weren't entirely wrong. The film gleefully mocked everything from frontier justice to American folklore, dancing along the razor's edge between parody and perversion. Yet somehow the depravity struck a nerve. Over time, Cannibal The Musical developed a devoted cult following. Fans quoted its absurd songs like Let's Build a Snowman and Spadoinkle Day with reverent irony. While Hollywood tried to sweep it under the rug, the film refused to die, proving, much like its infamous subject, that sometimes the most grotesque stories are the hardest to swallow and the hardest to forget. 8. The Driller Killer, 1979, resurrected in the 90s underground. Though technically released in 1979, The Driller Killer found a second, darker life in the grungy underbelly of 1990s exploitation cinema. Directed by Abel Ferrara, who also starred in the film under a pseudonym, it told the story of a mentally unstable artist spiraling into madness, unleashing his rage with a power drill on the unsuspecting homeless of New York City. Banned in several countries and slapped with a video nasty label in the UK, the film was initially too raw for mainstream distribution. But by the 90s, the VHS bootleg circuit and underground film fests had embraced its no-budget brutality and punk nihilism. It became a cult hit with Generation X cinephiles, who saw its urban decay and anti-establishment tone as a prophetic reflection of their own disillusionment. Hollywood, trying to scrub its hands clean of such gritty, guerrilla-style horror, avoided acknowledging the Driller Killer's growing influence. But its grimy fingerprints were all over the era's indie horror and slasher revivals. In the shadows of glossy studio thrillers, the Driller Killer lived on, loud, messy, and impossible to ignore. 9. Bloodsucking Freaks, 1976, but revived by trauma in the 90s. In the wild, unregulated corners of cult cinema, a dark legacy lurks. Exploitation films that pushed boundaries so far Hollywood wished to erase them. Though Bloodsucking Freaks hit theaters in 1976, it became a forbidden relic rediscovered by 90s horror fanatics hungry for twisted thrills. Directed by Joel M. Reed, the film was a grotesque carnival of shock, filled with sadistic torture, macabre humor, and over-the-top gore that shocked even the most jaded audiences. While mainstream Hollywood polished its image in the 90s, indie distributors quietly kept Bloodsucking Freaks alive on VHS and midnight screenings. It became a symbol of depravity Hollywood desperately tried to bury under layers of gloss and corporate control. Its blend of brutal exploitation and camp horror revealed the dark underbelly of a film industry once free to shock without limits. For true cult fans, Bloodsucking Freaks wasn't just a movie. It was proof that cinema could still terrify, disgust, and provoke in ways no big studio dared. Thanks for watching this deep dive into the darkest corners of 90s exploitation cinema, those shocking films Hollywood desperately tried to bury. If you enjoyed uncovering these hidden stories with us, don't forget to subscribe to Globewise Entertainment right now. We bring you the raw, unfiltered truths behind the movies and legends you thought you knew. Also, I'd love to hear from you. Which 90s exploitation movie shocked or intrigued you the most? Drop your favorites or any rare finds you know about in the comments below. Let's get the conversation started and share these lost pieces of film history together. Until next time, stay curious, stay entertained, and keep exploring the wild side of Hollywood with Globewise Entertainment.